Photoshop CS6 and Camera Raw brought us another new change that I think is actually, on the surface, it kind of seems like it's a small change, but it's something that I find I use more and more now. Now that I have it, I find that I use it all the time. All right. In another video that we did here, I edited this photo, and we used the new sliders here inside of the basic panel for Camera Raw. So if you want to see, if you didn't see the video, you can see here's the before image, and here's the after image. And we did this all just by editing these 5-6 sliders right down here at the bottom. Okay, those sliders, in fact, most of them, there's probably about 4 sliders that did the majority of the change here. And I'm going to actually come in here and crank up the shadows a little bit more. But we did all that just using those sliders. Okay, now there's one other feature, because if I were to finish this photo off, there's one more thing that I would do. And overall, I'd like to warm the photo. So temperature and tint over here, the white balance isn't new. So I'm going to warm the photo. What it does is it warms the entire photo. And I like the foreground, but the sky got kind of yellow. All right, and this happens to me quite a bit, especially, you also find it happens if you're taking photos where something's in the shade and something's in the bright sunlight. You also find that whatever's in the shade tends to look blue, whatever's in the sunlight tends to look warmer. So we've got white balance problems. Well, we could come up here. I could go to the adjustment brush, or I could go to the graduated filter, and you'll notice right at the top, we now have white balance sliders. So these are brand new in the newest version of Camera Raw. So we could brush it on. Okay, we could brush our white balance on into the sky here, and I can make it bluer. I'm actually going to use the graduated filter. I'm going to take the exposure negative just a little bit here, and I'm going to move the temperature slider over toward the left. All I'm going to do is just drag and kind of just add that little graduated filter right up there in the sky. The overall purpose was to darken the sky. Okay, and that's what we'd use the graduated filter for. It's not a new adjustment inside of Camera Raw. Okay, so I would always use that to darken the sky, and you can kind of move it and tweak it a little bit here. You could take a look at the before and the after, but the new part here is the ability to come in here and change that temperature slider, because without it, see how the sky it's kind of muddy, it has that warm type of a feeling to it, and of course it's going to have a little bit, the sun's going down, but we lose some of that crisp blue color that the sky had in it by adjusting the white balance. Remember before when I adjusted the white balance for the photo? Well, it's for the entire photo. So this lets us come in here, and this lets us just kind of restrict that adjustment to a certain part inside of the photo. All right, so now that I don't have to add that white balance to the whole part of the photo. And I gotta tell you guys, it's one of those things I really like. Honestly, I didn't know that I wanted that change inside of the adjustment brush or the graduated filter, but now that I have it, it's one of those things I find I use over and over again. Also, when you get to the adjustment brush or the graduated filter, you'll see that you now have access to other sliders. So we used to have access to a limited number of sliders. Now we've got control of highlights and shadows and contrast, exposure, clarity, saturation, sharpness, noise reduction is new, moire reduction. All right, so these are 2 new sliders as among the shadows and the highlights as well, which we couldn't do that. So it's like fill light was the old shadow slider before CS6. Well, all you had was fill light inside of the basic panel. You could never brush it on into an area. If you just wanted to open up the shadows in a specific area, you could never do that. You only had that one slider here, but you've also got some new ones down here at the bottom. So overall, if you're a photographer, these are some new sliders to get yourself acquainted with. It's something it's kind of a change in some ways, especially the basic panel, but it's definitely something that you need to get yourself familiar with, because you will find that at the end of the day, they do overall make your photos look better, and I think are much easier to use in the end too.